And our top story tonight, a new discovery about red tide, which affects swimming, fishing, and the health of Florida's sea creatures. 5 years of research from several institutions, including Mote Marine Laboratory in Sarasota, has now led to a better understanding of the bloom known as Karenia brevis. And it's a scientific term, but SNN's Melissa Warren joins us now, tells us what it is, and has more of the findings.
Well, Mote researchers say they were able to identify new sources of food that fuels what we know as red tide.
As a former researcher here used to say, Karenia is not very picky, and it doesn't care where it gets its nutrients from. It can use atmospheric nutrients coming in rainfall. It can use nutrients being released from the sediment. It can actually engulf other tiny phytoplankton or bacteria and get a square meal that way.
Dixon says even the sunlight can break down color in the water to make nutrients the bloom can feed on.
Probably the most important part is there's another cyanobacteria, which is another organism that's out in the environment, and it can take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into a soluble form that Karenia can use. And so offshore, where most of our blooms start, that source is one of the most important ones.
And knowing what the blooms feed on helps scientists better understand its movement and warn people where it's headed.
By having numeric bounds on these different sources, now the people who are doing the modeling of red tide and how it grows and how it moves and how it's moved around by tides and currents, now they can set better parameters and can make more accurate models so that we can predict where it's going next.
Even with this new information, Dixon says there are still many questions remaining, including how to stop it.
Even some other scientists want simple answers, and there's just not going to be a simple answer for this one, I'm afraid.
Well, Dixon said red tide is a phenomenon that we've known about since the Spanish made their first trips to America. In fact, one of the worst cases of red tide was in 1844, and they don't have evidence at this point that it's getting any worse or more frequent.
All right, now part of the research, from what I'm understanding, has to do with pollution and how it affects red tide. What did they discover about that?
That's an interesting point. They actually said the nutrients in the estuary caused by pollution could make red tide stick around longer, but they now know it's not what's causing it to begin with.
All right, well, the research continues. All right, Melissa, thanks.